evening, everyone. My name is Laura Schifrin, and I'm calling the meeting to order. I don't know why that's not working. This evening, Monday, April 10th, we are running late, 6:40 p.m. The meeting is being recorded, and I'd like you to stand, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you to our servicemen and women in the past and present. Although we did the recital, I didn't have the roll call. So roll call, please. Members on Zoom.
Mike Verosco, present.
Carol Hoffs is present.
Robert Theron, present.
And Laura Schifrin, present. Okay, I guess Ian can't be with us tonight. Oh, we have 4 minutes before we have to start. Can we just start with the correspondence?
What is on there?
Well, 4.1 is our joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen on the 18th at 6:30.
Okay, so you all, board members have received the application for the petition for road acceptance for Harbor Trace and Cooperage Way. That's for, I'm collecting referral comments from departments for the meeting on the 18th. It's going to be a joint
Okay.
meeting, Board of Selectmen meeting, and at that time, board members will be asked to vote and make a recommendation on the road acceptance.
Okay, thank you. 4.2 is the stormwater management. Any updates?
Not since last week.
Right, this is the third week in a row that we're meeting, so. Okay, 4.3, notices from other towns.
I don't think there were any this week.
4.4, update. Carol?
No, I don't have any.
Oh, good. Get through this really quickly. 4.5, citizen planner, the CPTC annual conference follow-up. We had that last week.
Yep, so I didn't know if Robert had any more on that or if we.
Robert, did you have anything more on the CPTC annual conference that you attended?
I'm sorry, I missed that, Laurie.
We're under the correspondence now at 4.5. And you did give an update somewhat with Beth last week on the CPTC annual conference.
Yes.
Anything you remembered after that you meant to tell us?
No, I do. I think what we wanted to do, I had suggested that we review in our zoning bylaw, prepare something for the new requirements so that it can be available for approval at the fall town meeting. So that, if you recall, the law requires, there's no exemption in the law, so we have to create this this zoning relief or zoning bylaw to accommodate it. And so I think it's going to take a little while because we should get quite a bit of input from other departments on their thoughts on how we can put some guidelines in that bylaw to make it practical for our community.
Okay, I think that what we do first is we do an attempt at a bylaw and then send that out for referrals, right, Beth?
Well,
I mean, there's a state template.
We have a DLTA contract.
Oh, that's right.
With MRPC, and the scope of services has been received. And I believe it's been approved. And I believe that according to that scope, there's supposed to be a kickoff meeting in April with the planning board and MRPC. However, this is our only meeting in April. So I guess I would have to reach out and.
Yeah, find
schedule
out if they can
something.
be with us on the eighth, May 8th,
May 8th. Okay,
okay?
sure, for the kickoff meeting?
Yeah. Mm-hmm,
Okay.
okay. And then that can get in the minutes and just have that, so 4.5 can come off, next time.
Yep.
And when, perhaps under old business, we could do, preparing of that zoning bylaw with the DLTA grant, via MRPC.
Okay.
And then we'll have that on the agenda for reports in the future. Okay, Robert?
Sure.
Okay. So now we've gone through correspondence and we're at 6:45. And I would like to call the continuation public hearing of 22 Main Street Site Plan Review Special Permit Application to order at 6:45 PM. On Monday, I'm losing it, April 10th, 2023. Stan, nice to see you.
You too. So since the last time we met a long week ago, we've done a few things that you asked us to do. We made a couple of plan revisions. We added a note for the Conservation Commission that there's no wetland resource areas within 100 feet of any of the work area. I corrected a note that Carol pointed out that was erroneous relative to pavement width. We applied for our ZBA filing for the parking space in the front of the building, and I submitted to Beth a suggested timeline for construction. I think those were the four items that we talked about last time. And as an aside, the Mass Highway permit is underway because I know that because today they asked us for a file for money, so they're reviewing that now. So the timeline, I had seven kind of target times. They starting on June 1st and then wrapping everything up by the middle of October.
Okay, we see that. Robert, Michael, did you see that? The timeline and everything he just stated was sent to us this afternoon. And along with that information, which was given to Adam, Beth and Adam have drafted, well, Beth drafted, and with Adam's review and a couple of back and forths, we have the decision to either approve as is, make changes to, or whatever, vote on this evening. So that is what we're dealing with next.
Do you want to screen share it or no?
Yeah, if you want. What is, this,
Charlie, can I screen share?
Harley, can you give Beth screen sharing? My intent for the board members and for Stan is that I'm going to be reading the entire decision as it's been drafted. And it was drafted per our discussions of our last meeting. And also takes into account the documents that you provided to us today.
Mm-hmm.
As well as now the information that MassDOT has received an application from the applicant. Okay, so that's in front of you, but I'm not going to read the top part, but I'm going to read the rest of the decision. Should we approve it tonight, it will be April 10th. 1, statement of facts. Application submitted to town clerk July 19th, 2022. Legal notices, and I won't recite them, but they're there. Site visit of the planning board was August 15th, 2022. Public hearing opened on August 22nd, 2022, and was continued on October 3rd, 2022, November 7th, 2022, December 12th, 2022, February 13th, 2023, February 27th, 2023, April 3rd, 2023, and to tonight, April 10th, 2023. Submitted with filing, Exhibit A was a site plan review application fee of $350. Exhibit B, application for site plan review. Abutters were notified. Mailings were done first class on July 28th, 2022. Abutting towns were notified. Ashby, Groton, Lunenburg, Pepperell, and Shirley, Mass, and Brookline and Mason, New Hampshire on July 28th, 2022. Submitted at public hearings, Exhibit C, site plans entitled Site Plan Townsend, Mass, 22 Main Street, and sheet numbers. I'm not going to recite all the sheets if that's okay with everyone. Prepared by Dillis and Roy Civil Design Group, Inc., signed and stamped by Francis M. McPartlin, P.E. Final revision date, April 4th, 2023. 22 Main Street, best friend, that's the top part. Exhibit D, mandatory referrals were sent first to the Board of Selectmen, Board of Health, the Zoning Board of Appeals, and Conservation Commission on July 20th, 2022. And a second mandatory referral was sent on March 6th, 2023. Referral notices were also sent to other boards and departments on both dates as a courtesy. Responses received were read into the record at the public hearings, transmitted to the applicant on file with the town clerk. No responses were received. Okay. Exhibit E, public hearing attendance lists are on file. Dr. Sally Thurber, applicant, attended hearings on August 22nd, 2022, November 7th, 2022, December 12th, 2022, February 13th, 2023. Stan Dillis and Roy, representing the applicant, attended the hearings on December 12th, 2022, February 13th, 2023, February 27th, 2023, April 3rd, 2023, and now April 10th, 2023. Exhibit F, Stormwater Operation and Maintenance Manual for a Site Plan 22 Main Street, final revision, date April 3rd, 2023, stamped and signed by the engineer. Exhibit G, Long-Term Pollution Prevention Plan for 22 Main Street, final revision date April 3rd, 2023, stamped and signed. Exhibit H, memo dated February 22nd, 2023 from Dillis and Roy, C. Inc., to the planning board, Stormwater Memorandum 22 Main Street. Exhibit I, memo from Dillis and Roy, Inc., to planning board, land disturbance activity, thresholds, calculations, stormwater management, permit filing, exemption. If anything seems wrong, chime in anytime, okay?
I might adjust those a little bit better with dates and stuff.
Okay,
Those two exhibits.
okay, those two exhibits may be adjusted with their dates.
One question.
Yes, ma'am.
I just noticed on the first page, you had Rick Parlin as a PE with his number. But then on these other ones, you say civil number. So is it civil number or PE number? Because it's all the same.
I think it's civil number. I'm pretty
But
sure.
then maybe
Yeah,
that
let's-
should be
let's-
changed on the front.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same thing. But for
Same.
consistency, Beth, you might want to just edit it for them to all say PE.
Thank you, yeah.
Oh, they should all say
Consistent.
PE versus civil.
It's the same thing, but just make them all say one or the other, so it's consistent.
So civil.
The stamp says civil, then
Yep,
do
it
that.
actually says, yeah.
Okay,
civil
do
number.
that.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'll change that.
Exhibit J, letter from Dillis and Roy, to the planning board, 22 Main Street, mandatory department referrals response letter. And Exhibit K, construction timeline to the reference to the construction sequence on a site plan. Okay, dated April 4th, 2023. Oh, yeah, it was, okay. Thank you for your quick response on that, Stan. You did it the day after.
I don't want to have to make you have a meeting next week too. So we're trying.
Okay, we're totally thrilled about that. Okay, to bylaw background. I won't have to recite those. Those are all applicable sections of the Townsend bylaw. And then also applicable sections of planning board rules and regulations and applicable section of Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Sections 9 and 11. On to 3, parcels background. The parcel is located at 22 Main Street, Route 119, Assessors Map 41, Block 6, Lot 0, in the outlying commercial district and aquifer protection overlay district. The 1.25 acre parcel contains 112 feet of frontage on State Highway Route 119, a 1,400 square foot former single-family home, and approximately 144 square feet of an outbuilding. Prior to its recent conversion to a veterinary hospital, the property was a residential use.
Can I ask you a question?
Mhm.
I'm sorry. What is the approximate size of that shed that's going to be removed? I took a guess, Mr. Dillis.
Stan,
Well,
the shed,
it's like you have it at 144 square feet, which would be 12 by 12. I think it's 10 by 12.
Okay, thank
so a
you.
little bit smaller.
Fair enough.
Is that enough of a reference for you?
Yeah.
Okay. Number 4, statement of case. The applicant seeks approval for her conversion of the interior of the existing building into a veterinary hospital and to construct vehicle parking via a circular driveway for clients and employees. An ADA compliant handicap parking space is proposed within the front yard setback, which requires a variance from the Townsend Zoning Board of Appeals. Proposed mitigation for stormwater runoff generated from the proposed site work has been addressed in the long-term pollution plan stormwater operation and maintenance manual and soil erosion control plan erosion control drawings. A construction schedule has been provided at the board's request to ensure the timely completion of the project. 5, findings. Zoning bylaws 145-24 driveways and entrances. A-C. The board finds the proposed entrance will also be utilized as the exit, and the proposed circular driveway will accommodate one-way vehicular travel around the building. The applicant acknowledged that she is required to file an application with the Massachusetts Department of Transportation, MassDOT, for a state highway access permit to Route 119. The board finds that contingent upon MassDOT's issuance of such a permit, the proposed alterations to the ingress, egress, and parking spaces at the site will be adequate for the proposed use. The proposed alterations will adequately serve the proposed internal renovations to promote the existing building located on a pre-developed site. 145-33 parking requirements. A, performance requirement. The board finds that the 7 proposed parking spaces are appropriately located off the circular driveway, and the single ADA compliant parking space is proposed to be in front of the building, subject to the issuance of a variance as stated above. The proposed circular driveway and parking design will prove adequate for the intended use. B, the board finds that the required number of parking spaces is provided. The proposed 7 parking spaces dispersed along the proposed circular one-way driveway are adequate. C, the board finds the location of the handicap parking space in front of the building requires a filing for variance to Townsend zoning bylaw 145-33C 5 with the zoning board of appeals. The board finds that due to the proposed driveway design, insufficient turning radius is provided for waste removal trucks to access the on-site dumpster and subsequently continue along the one-way circular driveway to exit the site. Instead, these trucks must exit the site from the same direction they enter, i.e. against traffic. Accordingly, waste removal will be restricted to non-business hours. D, the board finds the proposal compliant with the requirements of the parking lot plantings as drawn on the site plan and provided in the planting schedule. Proposed plantings shall be maintained in what? Okay. And there will be no impact upon site distance for the vehicles entering and exiting the site. As conditioned below, the project will meet the requirements outlined in the zoning bylaw for access and egress to and from the proposed parking spaces. 145-42, site plan review special permit. A, purpose. 1, 2, and 3, the board finds the proposal meets with the purpose and intent of the applicable portions of the zoning bylaw in that the proposed operation will take place within exiting building and improve the site with addition of a sidewalk across the frontage of the parcel, adequate driveway, parking, handicap parking, and stormwater management infrastructure. The veterinary hospital will be a beneficial addition to the outlying commercial district with regard to systems of vehicular and pedestrian access and building structure and neighboring property values. The board finds the addition of this business to the neighborhood will not adversely affect the health, safety, and welfare of the public. E, drawing requirements. A waiver to allow hand-drawn plans was not approved by the vote of the board during the August 22nd, 22 session of the public hearing. Professionally drawn plans were subsequently submitted. Okay, it looks like another E, but it's F, so you just want to change that? F, access and circulation. The board finds the requirements related to access and circulation with respect to the ingress and egress will be determined by the MassDOT. The applicant's consultant testified that efforts to work with adjacent properties towards creating shared vehicle access has been unsuccessful. The board found the proposed design is sufficient to avoid, I'm sorry, I don't know that word.
Queuing, backing up of traffic.
Okay. Queuing of traffic on Route 119 for vehicles entering and exiting the site with deference to the MassDOT review. The width of the proposed one-way circular driveway is adequate. The project includes construction of a new sidewalk along the front of the property to improve public safety. 145-65 special permits. A to F. The board finds that the proposal will not have adverse effects which overbalance its beneficial effects on either the neighborhood or the town, and has determined that the proposed use will be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the zoning bylaw to include but not be limited to following applicable sections. A, adequacy of the site in terms of size for the proposed use. B, suitability of the site for the proposed use. C, impact on traffic flow and safety. D, impact on neighborhood visual character including views and vistas, and E, adequacy of method of sewage disposal. Planning Board rules and regulations, the board finds that the general requirements for applications were met. Applicable sections, Mass General Law, the board finds the compliance requirements outlined in these laws were met. 6, conclusion. Based on the information presented, the board finds that the applicant satisfies the standards for issuance of the site plan special permit under the zoning bylaws, Planning Board rules and regulations, and Massachusetts general laws as outlined above. Conditions. After closing the public hearing, so this will be, should we vote on this evening, it was moved by whatever member and seconded. A, the applicant shall apply for and obtain approval from the Zoning Board of Appeals for a variance from section 145-33(5). And at this point, we know that they have applied.
Yep.
B, the applicant shall apply for and obtain a vehicular access permit, so-called C-700 CMR 13 from the MassDOT, authorizing placement and utilization of the driveway as shown on the plan approved hereunder. Not less than once every 45 days, the applicant shall notify the board in writing of the status of its application for and efforts to obtain such a permit, and shall, upon request of the board, attend meetings of the board to address the same. Upon receipt of a permit, a copy of therefore shall be promptly provided to the board. The board expresses no opinion on the applicant's present and ongoing use of the property for a veterinary clinic without advance receipt of a vehicular access permit from MassDOT, but defers to MassDOT processes and enforcement of its own regulations as aforesaid. Nevertheless, the applicant's receipt of such a permit is an express condition of the board site plan special permit. And we know this evening from Stan that the application has been at least presented to MassDOT. C, are there any questions so far or in our conclusion or decision that, because I want you to stop me while we're at it so we can address it. It seems that everything I've read so far is what we stated at the last meeting, and everything we asked for, just to reiterate, has been complied with by Stan and by the applicant. So I go on to C. Because insufficient turning radius is provided for waste removal trucks to access the on-site dumpster and subsequently continue along the one-way circular driveway to exit the site, and because they must instead exit the site from the same direction they enter, i.e. against traffic, waste removal services shall be restricted to non-business hours. D, all plantings shown on the site plan shall be maintained by the applicant in perpetuity. E, the applicant shall complete the project with adherence to the dates provided on the construction timeline affixed to hereto as Exhibit K. In no event shall project completion occur any later than October 15th, 2023. Should project completion not occur by said date, the within site plan special permit shall expire, absent an extension by the board for good cause shown. F, the approval decision and the appended stormwater operation and maintenance manual shall be recorded in the Middlesex South Registry of Deeds at the applicant's expense within 14 days following the approval and expiration of the 20-day appeal period, or the resolution of any appeal in favor of the board's decision. The applicant shall file with the planning board a certificate stating the date the approved decision was recorded in the book and page numbers within 7 days of recording. G, project shall adhere to all applicable zoning bylaws, planning board rules and regulations, and any conditions imposed by the Board of Health. the building commissioner, and all applicable local and state environmental agencies. H, subject to the conditions contained herein, the project shall be undertaken and operated in a substantial conformance with the approved plan, including but not limited to any accompanying submittals by the applicant, as revised through the date hereof. The determination of substantial conformance shall be made by a board in its sole discretion. Any material deviation shall require review and approval of the board, i.e. through an amendment of the within approval or a new site plan special permit as appropriate. I, the site plan special permit granted hereunder applies only to the site. All work undertaken on the site and subsequent operation of the project shall be in accordance with the terms of the within decision and shall be limited to the improvements shown on the approved plan. J, the within decision applies only to the requested site plan special permit. Other permits or approvals required by the zoning bylaw or from the town's general bylaws, if any, and from any other governmental boards, agencies, and bodies having jurisdiction shall not be assumed or implied by the within decision, and the applicant shall be required to seek and obtain the same. K, the applicant is and shall be required to comply with all pertinent requirements of the Americans with Disabilities Act, the Massachusetts State Building Code, and the Architectural Access Board's rules and regulations, all as amended insofar as the same apply to the project or any component of the site's redevelopment or reuse. L, during the construction, renovation, or redevelopment of the site, as contemplated herein, the applicant shall conform to all local, state, and federal laws regarding noise, vibration, dust, and blocking of any roads. The applicant shall at all times use all reasonable means to minimize inconvenience to residents and businesses in the general area as applicable. M, the board, the town's building commissioner, and their respective agents may enter onto, view, and inspect the site from time to time without notice, so as to ensure compliance with the terms and conditions listed herein, subject to applicable safety requirements as established by the applicant and/or her contractors. Enforcement authority shall expressly be vested in the board, but also in said building commissioner and in the town's police department as may be necessary or appropriate. N, the board hereby reserves its powers to modify or amend the terms and conditions of the within decision upon its own motion with consent from the applicant or upon request by the applicant. The board further reserves its powers to amend the within decision without a new public hearing, provided that the board finds that such amendment is not significant to the public interest and that such amendment is not inconsistent with the purpose and intent of the zoning bylaw or with the terms of within the decision. O, the site plan special permit granted hereunder shall lapse 2 years from the date of issue, not including any such time required to pursue or await the determination of an appeal pursuant to Mass General Law 48. If substantial use thereof has not sooner commenced, except for good cause, as determined in public hearing, with written consent of the board, or in the case of a special permit for construction, if construction has not begun by such date, except for good cause as determined in a public meeting with written consent by the board. Thank you, Beth.
Oh, yeah.
And thank you, Adam. And thank you, Stan. That is the decision. And now I will entertain a motion to vote on this decision. I don't have to read any more. No. And this will have to be signed by at least 4 of the 5.
So I would probably underneath O, I would, make that the motion on the date, on this date, the planning board voted to grant the site plan permit.
Yes,
And then,
that would be,
oh, here we go, sorry, underneath.
isn't
number
it?
7.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, because you have
Okay.
to subject it to the following. condition. Yeah, okay.
Right.
So that's the motion.
So, I'll entertain a motion to approve what I just read under number 7, which has all of the conditions that I just read.
Yeah.
Okay, so it would be moved by Carol?
Oh, okay, so move.
Okay, so Carol makes the motion. Can I have a second to the motion?
Do you want to just read it for the record? Just read the motion. Carol Hofstas makes a motion to grant the site plan special permit subject to.
Well, second,
You
can
don't
I
have
get a
to read it.
second? Can I get a second?
Hey, Lori, I'll second that. I'm sorry. I
So
could
Carol
not unmute
Hofstas-
fast enough.
Okay, Carol Hostas has made the motion and Michael Roscoe has seconded to grant the site plan special permit subject to the following conditions that I have read, A through O. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay, on the date. Which is April 10th. Okay, motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion?
So I have further discussion.
Who's that? Ian?
Robert,
Okay.
I was under the impression that the draft proposal that you prepared and obviously reread tonight would be approved subject to hearing back from MassDOT. So that's what I assumed this meeting was about, that we had heard from MassDOT.
no, Robert, there is a subject to MassDOT in several places of the decision.
Well-
And we know now, we have a timeline, which is what, we actually got back everything we asked for last week.
I agree.
What we could not determine, and we won't be able to determine, is when the answer comes back from MassDOT. But what we know now has been confirmed, that the application has been made to MassDOT by Sally Thurber, by the applicant.
Yes.
Okay, so everything that could possibly be done at this point in time has been done. And everything that I just read were all the conditions, A through O. And a couple of the places it says, subject to MassDOT.
Mhm. I understand. I understand, Laura. My question is, what happens while we're waiting for MassDOT? Is work going to continue there under the assumption it's all going to be approved by MassDOT?
Well, I don't know if you, I mean, I didn't read the outline, but I don't know if you saw it where,
Yeah, the answer is yes.
I mean, the answer is yes, under this list of scheduled dates that we have. If you want me to read them, I will.
No, I remember you reading them. And, you know, and they did include
This is the
everything we
schedule.
asked for. So I know they worked diligently to do that. My question was, are they intending to start work continuously, even awaiting MassDOT's review?
Well, they probably aren't going to do the pavement until they have MassDOT
Right, I
review.
think we talked about maybe doing a temporary deal there, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, they've
Okay.
got a date for August 30th on the compacted base.
Okay, I'm sorry, this is just a clarification.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah,
So
I think, just for clarification, the special permit that Lori read is, one of the conditions is that it is subject to getting the Mass DOT permit. So if the Mass DOT permit is not issued, the special permit has to be amended or revised, and that would require a whole new hearing.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Depending on what their decision is, yeah. But I quickly review the schedule, okay? It's not read into the record, so I will read it into the record.
It's
That,
not necessary, Laura.
Or I
Okay,
think Beth cited it as one of the findings.
Right.
It's in Beth's findings, it refers to the letter.
oh, yeah,
Okay.
everything is, I mean, I just read this, I think everything is covered that we asked for, last week. And Beth, you did a great job of putting it together, and Adam did a great job on the decision. So, hearing no other comments or concerns, I will ask for a roll call vote.
Carol Hoff says yes.
Robert Therian here.
What happened to Michael? He was just here, now he's gone.
Bless you.
Michael.
Oh, my.
We need 4 out of 5. We need Michael back. Yeah. I bet you he had technical difficulties because he was there just a minute ago. Oh my God. I have texted him. We can't even move off this subject or adjourn this public hearing until I have the vote. Yeah, he's got disconnected. He's trying to reconnect.
Okay, good.
And if, okay, no.
Do you want everyone to sign if it's okay if everyone signs this? That's where it is.
Yes,
Oh, here he
yes.
is, here.
And yes, unless you want to change it to one signature,
I can do that.
because you've got the vote.
I can change it to one if you want.
That's up to the board, but
You'd have to make
for
another
just
one.
a minute, Michael,
Mhm.
Hey, Lori, I'm back. I'm so sorry. This has been happening all day with my Xfinity. This is like the 10th time my internet kind of like just dropped it. So I had to grab my cell phone quickly.
okay, so I saw you there after the motion was made and seconded. Well, you seconded the motion, and then we started discussing with Robert, and then you were gone when we were going to do the vote. So
I lost connection like mid Robert sentence, like probably 2 sentences in.
okay, all right. So I will retake the vote.
Carol Hoff says yes.
Robert Therian here.
Mike Verosco, yes.
And Laura Schifrin, yes.
Thank you. Motion carried.
The motion carried. Is it the board's pleasure that the chair sign the decision, or do you all want to sign?
I'll move to have the chair sign it.
I second.
Okay, all those in favor, roll call vote?
Carol Hoff says yes.
Robert Therian.
Mike Verosco, yes.
Okay, so that's the majority to have me sign,
Okay, great.
okay?
Sounds good.
Oh my God.
I think you just need to close the public hearing.
Yes, sir. I was just trying to breathe in between that book I just read.
Lori, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing for 22 Main Street.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a second. I'll take a roll call vote to close the public hearing for 22 Main Street at 7:25 PM.
Carol Hofstas, yes.
Barbara here.
Mike Verosco, yes.
Thank you all very much. And Stan, thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm glad we could bring this to a conclusion and get things moving forward at that site. Thank you very much.
We are too. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.
Okay, so, or I just lost the second page of my agenda. Second page.
I just.
Yeah, okay. So we have done all of 4.
You want to do the
We did
minutes?
this. Oh, yes, I'd like to go back to preliminaries at 1.5. Review and/or approve minutes of April 3rd, 2023. They have been sent to us. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of Monday, April 3rd, 2023.
And is there a second?
I second that.
Okay. All those in favor, unless there's any corrections to them? I love having them done right away.
Yeah.
Thank you, Beth.
Sarah Hofstas, yes.
Barbara here.
Mike
Michael
Verosco, yes.
and Laura Schifrin, yes.
Oh, yeah, we're all up to date.
We are up to date, yes. Okay, under business, 3.1. I'd like to jump to 3.3 if everybody's okay. Because I want you guys to be doing the discussion on this. The proposed bylaw modifications drafted by the Housing Authority, discussion on the residential cluster development section was mentioned last week. It's been in your portal for a while. And since I'm on the Housing Authority, I have already approved this to come to the planning board. So it really is up to you to give input or approval, support of those bylaws to be added for the town.
Would you like that screen shared, Madam Clerk?
Yes, please. Beth is going to screen share it.
The residential cluster development.
Residential cluster development.
Just these couple of pages.
Yes. Let's see. Can everyone read that? Or have you already read it? Do you have any thoughts or anything to add? To page 1. Do you want to scroll down a little? Documentation, setbacks. Please understand again that a lot of these changes are like what they say about the cottage developments, dwellings, which would be wonderful for us to have for our seniors. And the lot coverages, again, everything is subject to Board of Health approval. It doesn't matter how big or how small the lot is, if it's not gonna be, or the requirements go, if it's not gonna be approved by the Board of Health, there won't be anything there.
Okay, my only concern is as long as it doesn't affect the public drinking water, because, you know, Tivoli Park, not me particularly, but a lot of people I talked to, they had ongoing issues with horrible water coming into their homes with sediment, brown water.
Uh-huh.
And it's an ongoing thing. It's not just a temporary thing, so. And I know they're having problems with the wells, I mean, the aquifer and stuff, but.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you think it's, well, yeah, because the prohibition would be on the septic systems more so. And especially when that's considered a public water source too, there, you know, because they're a municipality now, part of the town.
Yeah,
So, and all of our drinking water is wells.
Hey, Lori,
Yes,
I'm sorry. I know that she brought up the water with the town water within Timberley Park. So there is, this is something I kind of know a little bit about too with the Timberley Park. This has everything to do with the PFAS in Massachusetts being changed for a quote unquote acceptable level. So we were always within an acceptable level within the town. And then the federal government or the state government, I can't remember which one, so don't quote me, changed the acceptable level, which then put us into a new acceptable level. We became an unacceptable level. So that's why they had to shut down a whole well that basically did do Timberley Park for the area. And that was the big issue with the sediment in the water, the brown water, is because the pipes were going, water was flowing different ways in the pipes. And that's where that came from. Hold on, sorry. Amazon just pulled up.
so to that, I found it really interesting. I don't know where I saw this, probably Facebook or one of the news feeds, where this situation that we have is nationwide. This is not statewide or just Townsend and local areas. This is
Exactly. That's because of the changing of acceptable levels in what is quote unquote considered contaminated water with those PFAS. And unfortunately in Townsend, when you have a majority of the population in Timberley Park, you know, you look at our concentration, that's a very big concentration there. And the well that basically served Timberley Park was the one that was the most impacted, and they had to shut that down. Water was going different ways in our system, releasing rust and that brown water. It was still safe to drink, yes, but you create hard water, you create staining, you create these issues. So it is one thing that I know the water department has been working on. I've been following them. I've been talking to certain people there. So that is something to you know, Carol does bring up a pretty good point about that. I don't know how to overcome that. And my biggest thing is, you know, as someone that does lending is, you know, a lot of the areas outside of the water district, even then you're putting, you know, wells pretty close, and that's going to start putting a pretty big strain on aquifer systems as well too. So that's my only hesitation with this whole, I mean, I'm all for it. I'd love to see towns start building more, but at the same time, I'd love to see it correlate with town water being expanded and things like that. Because you're going to start having issues with not even just septic systems being close to well water. You're going to have issues with wells within 100 feet in consistent areas. And we're not having the same kind of years that we used to have with wells. I mean, I don't have a neighbor on one side, and my well runs dry pretty frequently, and it's a deep well. I have a neighbor on the other side, and he has the same issue, and we're off the water district. So that is one of my hesitations with this, is there's nothing to protect people that already own homes in Townsend off the water district.
well, most of the town is off the water district.
You'd be surprised. There's not a lot of the town is really off the water district, though. That's one of the things. You know, there are certain areas, you know, that are not on the water district, but a lot right now, the big part of the population in town really is on the water district. It's probably, if I had to look, probably about 60 to 70% in the water district and about 30 to 40% off the water district.
I'm gonna find out about that, because I'm not. I
Yeah.
know places
I mean,
like-
my term's up in like 2 weeks, unfortunately. So I don't know if I'm going to be on the board as a voting member for all of this, but one of my big hesitations is I don't want current homeowners to start having houses being built and then aquifers running dry and these wells running dry. And then they have to beg the town to start bringing in water mains down roads, which is going to be very, very expensive too, because we're already doing massive water main. I mean, it's not the town, it's really the water department, but they're running. That's why all the town's water bills are running up, because they're doing so many repairs to these aging lines right now. Which also, I want to say this is not a Townsend problem alone. This is a national problem, because most of the infrastructure for wells, for water lines and water mains is having these issues where they're anywhere from 40, there's lines in Boston that are 80 to 100 years old right now. So it's not atypical for this to be happening. This isn't a problem that just isolates Townsend, but this is something that does need to be brought apart when we're talking about these rezonings. And I'm all for building more houses in Townsend. I definitely think that we need to start getting the population up to bring businesses in, which is really going to help bring in the tax revenue as well too, and help get homeowners lower tax bills as well.
Yeah, well, okay, I've been saying that for a long time. If you don't grow the tax base, you're gonna need overrides. And even though people don't want overrides, you're not growing the tax base.
Yeah,
So-
and I agree with that. I think too with it though is if we grow the town, more businesses will come to town, even though we are not the best commuter location for things. Unfortunately, we would get some more activity in town, which would create businesses that, then maybe we could do things like, Westford or something like that, where they do split tax rates, and, the businesses could help offset the homeowners as well.
Yeah, you're a long way from that. I mean,
I'm being hopeful in my life.
yeah, okay. Yeah, mine's done.
Right, it is
I've been here 47 years and I've been active in town hall for probably more than 40 years.
I won't say the year I was born then.
No, you were born after I started working in town hall.
Yeah, I know that for a fact.
I should say. So tell me, we have a lot of land here that is not accessible to town water. We are not as dense as a city or as populated as certain sections of cities. What happens with city water? Besides the fact that it tastes terrible and people have to have filters and then they have to drink bottled water. We're not ever going to have that kind of municipality of a water system, because don't they go off reservoirs? So they don't have wells in the cities.
Yeah, so the cities can have wells and they can have reservoirs. Some of the bigger things is the infrastructure is there. That's the big thing. So one of the things like with what I don't want to have happen is, everyone to be like, oh, fine and dandy, like we're all for building and being, getting things done. And then we overlook something as simple as water. And then all of a sudden, I mean, you guys all see the town Facebook pages complaining about the issues that we're having. And that was just one well being down. That was not like multiple wells or anything like that. That was one well, and it was not even just during peak hours. It was during a lot of hours during the day. So
Yeah.
one of my problems is I don't want to see us be pro build, which I am. I'd love to see Townsend grow. I grew up here. I'd love to see it grow, but I don't want to overlook something as simple as water, because we have so many wells. We don't have as many areas that we can draw from. We don't have a wastewater plant like we do in like Pepperell even has. And that's one of the big issues. The other side of it is, yes, we do have a lot of land, but a lot of it is state conservation land. And that's one thing the state that refuses to, almost acknowledge when it comes to their new rulings, especially with MBTA and MBTA adjacent communities. When it comes to different things like that, that is one thing the town, the state refuses to acknowledge. I'll tell you this too, even in forestry protection, yeah, we do have a, state forestry that camps out here in Townsend, but that's not just for Townsend. That's for the whole district. So it's tough when a lot of the area is conservation land and they want us to grow. It's like, you guys keep buying land and you won't let us grow because you're limiting the areas that we can build and things like that.
So I just want to say that during the discussions that the Housing Authority had, water was brought into discussions. So everything is, if conservation says it's okay, if the Board of Health says it's okay, if the water department says it's okay, all that was brought into consideration. So
Well, the water department isn't going to have say in anything that is a well. You can drill a well. The water department's not going to say, "Oh, you can't drill a well there."
Yeah.
It's your land. You can still drill a well. The problem is when you're off the water district and then all of a sudden a bunch of wells start running dry from houses that have existed for 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 years, whatever it might be, because now some lands that might be landlocked are no longer landlocked, or bylaw locked, I guess you could say, because maybe they have the right frontage now and they have the right acreage and things like that. The problem is I don't want to see all of a sudden now it's like, hey guys, my well keeps running dry, and then they put a huge demand on the water department saying, you guys need to run the main down the road because you changed the bylaws to allow all these houses to be built, and now these aquifers aren't adequate for all these houses within such a short distance.
Let me ask you this, like, I know, and I'm assuming it's still the case, but I lived in Westford. They had a housing development that my cousin actually lives in, and they put in their own well for that housing development. So that housing development pays a fee to keep that wells going. So I don't know if you could do like, if you did like a cluster development, if they had like their own well, I don't know if that's.
well, that may be a stipulation. There's a bylaw, but then there's a process of getting a permit. You just, because the bylaw says this and the property looks like that, doesn't mean that it can happen, because you have to get a permit and you have to go through whatever process it is between design and testing and all of that. And I don't know, and will they have results of neighboring houses?
I don't know if you've ever.
And that's one of the things I don't know with the well permits in town, because I've never gone for one. I believe it or not, I've owned exclusively the houses I've owned in Townsend have had wells. One of them was, Homes by Hicks, like in the over off Spalding Street, and that well did run dry pretty frequently because the whole cul-de-sac had it, and we were, it was like a mini Timberley Park over there. So I can only imagine what could happen if you have a poor water supply and then you build a house where also on top of it, are they testing during a time where people are home? Probably not, because that's normally when the wells are recovering at that time. So just something I didn't know if we should bring this up to the water department to be like, hey, like what's our plan, big picture, because that's our job, is big picture is I would hate to see the water bills in Townsend are getting kind of high. A lot of people are complaining about it. Our taxes are pretty high. People are complaining about it. I would hate to see our cost of living keep getting higher in Townsend to the point where people keep getting priced out. That's one of my big concerns.
Well, that's gonna, whether you build or not. Robert, your hand is up.
Thank you. Mike's got some very valid points here. And I think when I look at what's been presented here for the affordable housing program, everything in here looks very good. I think it is a very comprehensive approach to addressing that problem. The weakness in this is that it doesn't address these other problems, such as what Mike presents with the water department, and ultimately a sewer system to accommodate that. These are incredible tasks and challenges for a community like Townsend to address. Particularly, we don't even have consulting information on how much of a water resource we really have, or how that could be potentially provided. So I agree with Mike Barasso here very strongly. So the bylaw is presented. I don't have any problems with it, but we need to tighten it up more. One of the suggestions I could make is, and it's based on current information I received just a few weeks ago when I met with the town planner in Harvard. Harvard was a very similar community to Townsend. And a developer did come in, and he's building well over 200 units. And I believe it's high density units. And it does not become a burden for the town of Harvard. That developer thought it was worth the investment, and he was able to tap on to the resources of the old Fort Evans. And so that project's going to go through. However, it's not a burden to the town or the taxpayers. So to make these high density areas, then they really have to be self-sufficient. And I can't help that if that makes these units non-affordable. But it's a reality. Whoever's going to be occupying those units are going to need those services. And the town doesn't have valid information to demonstrate that we could even deliver them, let alone pay for them. So that's one thing I see that has to be entertained in this proposed bylaw. And there were other things I had mentioned before about my concerns and maybe other people in the community's concerns about protecting scenic roads and about how is this going to impact our villages. And so I think this bylaw is a very good base to start with. But these other topics are going to have to be considered in moving forward with recommending it. And
You
so
see,
that's what I have to say about it. I really,
so to both of you though, I don't, and maybe to Beth, I don't understand where the current bylaws ask those questions. That I don't see anywhere where the bylaws address if you're building on a piece of property and there's other houses there, that you have to do anything but have setbacks. I mean, you can't tell the future.
no, the bylaws we have, I mean, Laura, what are we working on? We're trying to improve them and make them up to date and bring them up to date. There are archaic bylaws. And so, these are the things that we have to think of as being on planning board members. So in protecting the interests of everybody, the housing authority, the historic people, the conservation people, the water department, so everything that happens has an impact on the rest of the departments in the town, including fire and police and everything else. And that's why we go through all these reviews with each of these departments. But as far as the developer coming in, the more he's aware of what has to be addressed, the wiser he can be in making the decision of what kind of housing program he wants to produce. And so So the bottom line is, I'm very happy with what's the work that's been done. But there's more to be done. I think there's, and we don't, we don't have a lot of information of how this could be done. And that would also mean any potential developers. And of course, you're correct, Laura. That would be, they'd have to provide it somehow.
Well, would that be more in a, not necessarily in the bylaw, but more of a condition to granting permits for that development, wherever that would be? So in other words, right? Because I was trying to figure out where this would be, like in a general bylaw, but we have rules and regulations that we change without town vote as a planning board. So as you're talking, both of you, I'm trying to think of, well, okay, it seems like the only way to try to have both sides. In other words, we need economic growth. We need to grow our tax base. That's part of our planning. Okay, so the bylaws tell you what's allowed. In order to get your permit for what the bylaw allows, I think that's where the conditions come in. You look at the site and then you say, well, wow, this site has got, that's when we would look at who's on either side, what development is near there. That's when, and you guys have, I mean, it's been shown before over the years, the board talks about that. They talk about height, they talk about what it looks like, where you are in town. Those are not in the bylaws.
That's right.
They are in the regulations, in the policies that we have, in the contingencies that we do for any particular, that's why it's by right, but it has to be within reason. So you have to show a reason or all the reasons where this is not a harmful thing to go forward with. That's how I see we've looked at things on the planning board, in the past. So, I think water is right up there, like you guys mentioned, because it's up there everywhere. It's nationwide. It's something we have to address that maybe 20 years ago, we never thought about, in the same way that you think about it today. And this town has not grown in 20 years. This town is almost 10,000 people less in population than it was 20 years ago. You might have a few more houses, but you don't have the population you had. We were almost 10,000 people. Now we're almost 9. So.
Well, even so, that's even, I think that's a stronger point even, because we have less resources to do what we could have done before. So.
Listen to me. You have the same amount of properties. You have the same amount of properties paying taxes, okay? Or you have a few more, but you don't have the people using the services that you once had.
Yeah, which Laura, which kind of goes to the point of now that the state has stepped in and said, hey, we're having an issue with PFAS, so you got to get these down, you got to do this. And we have less people, and now we're having all these complaints about the water in town, and we're having these issues. It's one of those things where it kind of brings it to light. It's like, wait a second, we have less people in town, and we're having more issues with water supply, water quality, things like that. That's not a great thing. And honestly, yes, I do believe that we need a bigger population in town to grow a business base, because I don't think, in my opinion, that just growing the town as for a population is going to solve the tax base problem and our revenue problem. Because at the end of the day, let's be real, the average house in Townsend pays what, about $5,000 in taxes? And let's say people are building 4-bedroom houses, the average, they're putting 2 kids in there. If they have 2 kids, all of a sudden we build 10 houses, that's 50 students, right? 50 students is 2 teachers' salary. The $50,000 is what we're bringing in. We're just going to start paying for the teachers, and all that money is going to start going back to the school district, which is 54% of our budget right now. And that's a big thing. Is I view it as we need to grow the population to attract businesses, and that's where the strain is going to come. And I just think that we need to be smart about it so we don't start making this so impactful where all of a sudden, hey, things start getting approved, and all of a sudden now we're getting demands to bring water mains down, let's say Lunenburg Road, or up Wallace Hill, because those are all wells up there on Wallace Hill, or up until a certain point. It's there, or down Warren Road after Pierce. I know that for a fact too, because there's no town water down there. And those are the big things where if you look at what the water department has spent money on this year, look at the major one was the West Meadow Roads expansion and the replacement of those water mains. That was not cheap. And between that and the well issues, that's why people are complaining about their water bills right now. And at the end of the day, people can't afford their water. They can't afford these things. They're just going to move out, and all of a sudden we're going to have undervalued house. People are going to start losing value on their houses because the cost of living is too much. And I'm all for growing, but I want to do it in a very responsible manner where we just don't outbid. I don't want to say outbid. Or
Interesting that you say that about West Meadow Road, because there was no town water on West Meadow Road before West Meadow Estates was built. West Meadow Estates had to have town water put in. This is in the late 80s.
Yep.
Had to have town water put in there from Main Street up to West Meadow because the radon in the water was so high then. I mean,
Yep.
It was like they were having a lot of problems. The
I
developer,
believe it.
not the town, the developer, John Woolens, paid to have the water brought up from Main Street all the way up West Meadow to West Meadow Estates. It was not paid for by the town.
And now, and just so you know, now anyone that has town water is paying for the replacement of all those water mains. That's one of those things. Is look at that. That line is only how old? 40 years oldish.
Yeah.
And now they're having issues with that one.
That's up to the water department. But those lines were not put in. They were put in by the water department, but they were not paid for by the water department or by the Townsend residents. They were paid by the developer. So you've got some new lots, new building lots up on West Meadow that recently got permits. It was an A&R, right?
Yeah.
A&R.
Yep.
Okay. So they should be paying for tie-ins up there. The whole town isn't paying for them to have town water hookups.
No,
Right?
but they just paid for the whole line replaced, not the whole town, I should say. I should say anyone that pays for town water, part of their premium right now, and the reason for the increase. There's 2 reasons for their increase right now in town. One is the PFAS, and they have to get that water under compliance with the laws, both state and federal. And then the other one is they did some massive main replacements up there off West Meadow. So yes, that you're 100% correct that the town people did not pay for that, but right now they're paying for the second to be put in. Not even 40 years later, 45 years later, and there's lines in town that are older than that.
Yeah.
So that's one of those things is you start putting a strain on a system like that, and all of a sudden people's water bills start getting out of control. And that's one of the things that I couldn't consciously vote on this and not bring this up, because yes, I would love to see more buildings be done in town. And yes, in a perfect world, you're right, in a permanent system where people are, doing the checks and balances of everything, you're right. But unfortunately, we all know that doesn't always work. We don't live in a perfect world, unfortunately. And that's one of the things that my concern is. All of a sudden it's like, okay, well, they're doing this, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait a second, my well keeps running dry after taking a shower, everyone takes a shower in the morning, and oh wait, I'm trying to water my garden, or I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to do that, and it's not happening. That's a big concern, because all of a sudden now there's a demand to the water department, and you're going to see people going to town hall. We want town water down this road. We want town water down that road, and it is not cheap to bring it down. And yes, at the end of the day, they're going to have to pay for it, but that is going to significantly hurt property values. If, hey, yeah, it's a well. Oh yeah, by the way, it runs dry. Oh, so you have a house that has no water. So boom, house values drop, and these people are going to be really, really upset because there's a house or a development of houses that wasn't there 15, 20 years ago. And yeah, that's part of the way life works, unfortunately. But when it comes to water, people are going to get really pissed because it's something so little that people are going to overlook. And that's just my concern for people. Other than
Okay.
that, let's keep building.
Okay, I mean, I just want you to know that they did, Housing Authority did address the water. And it isn't, the bylaw isn't to make things worse, it's to make things better. What is your pleasure? What would you like to?
Do we have any comments from the water department about their plans for future expansion? Do we have any comments about well permits or anything like that? Because I didn't see anything. I just said, I just saw, like you said, that they talked about water. That was it.
I would go to the master plan and see what's in that for the water, and there's a water master. plan
Yeah,
as
right.
well. There's a water master plan. I can see if I can find that for him.
Okay, there is a section of the master plan that has the water recommendations in it. There's stuff in the master plan from the water department. They wrote it.
Yeah, there was.
Yeah,
It
quite
was the
bit.
water department that wrote it.
Yeah,
I vaguely remember it, but did they talk about a town base that was expanding, or a town base that was expanding at the current rate of expansion, which is pretty much negative?
Yeah, it's negative.
Yeah, so that's the thing is, and that's the one thing I like I said, I just can't remember. Did that master plan have plans for future development where we start seeing an influx? Because let's put it this way, there's a lot of landlocked properties in town that this bylaw would open up. And I don't want to see it to the point where, boom, we have no plan for this kind of boom in housing and boom on water restraints and stuff like that. So that's why I bring this up, because I think, if I remember correctly, the water department just had a plan to maintain, not grow. And they were talking about, the PFAS in there as well too for the master plan.
I thought it was on the website. That's why I was checking to see if it was available.
Okay.
Thanks, man.
Beth was checking to see if that was available for her to screen share, and she's not able to find it.
I thought it was on the website.
But it
It's
should be
the
on the
master plan.
website.
It should be.
I did too. I was looking through my emails earlier today, but I just had a crazy day, so I didn't get to look at all of it. And that was one of those things I was looking for, so I can bring it up, but unfortunately, I just couldn't find it.
We did not get that incorporated into the master plan, so
The water department report?
the newest update of the water master plan was not integrated, as far as I understand.
Really?
Water systems master plan updated, because it was updated during the process. Oh, I have it here.
Yeah,
February 2021,
yeah,
it was updated,
okay.
but it wasn't integrated, so that's why we have to do that section.
Oh. It wasn't.
Yeah, another section.
Explains why I might find it. I remember reading something about it when we did the master plan,
February 2021.
but I couldn't find it.
Okay, so send it to everybody. And why don't we take a look at that, and then, okay, just a minute, Robert. Why don't we take a look at that, and then if we are in agreement, we'll bring that to the attention of the Housing Authority in reference to this. Okay, because she can't put it up
I
on her,
could, but it's a long document. Yeah. I would
from the
also,
water department?
the water master plan is what I was talking about, and it's a whole master plan, and it's about 100 and some pages.
Oh, that they did, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
it wasn't just a
Yeah.
report,
Mhm.
okay.
And then the Board of Health should be able to supply information on wells. private wells.
Okay,
I know when we were working on the MVP plan, we were getting data from the Board of Health on private wells.
okay.
Yeah.
So I think knowing that, I think, again, depending on the parcel, that's where we refer back to the water master plan or the regulations. That's what we refer back to when we're going to address something. Robert, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Robert?
Oh, thank you. I just want some people to be aware of a lot of things that happen. So we have the MBTA putting requirements on our communities. And then we have these other programs for affordable housing and low income housing and 40B. So all these have objectives in mind, but in reality, what happens is to make them affordable, it's usually asked and many times demanded that the town provide these things to make them affordable. So it's not, you can't rely on the developers to necessarily pay the tab for these things and find the resources for them. It's very easy for the legislature to say that the towns have to provide them. And that's what we're seeing happening with all these programs. So they have political mandates they're trying to do, and then puts the burden on us.
You get it from the taxpayers.
Right.
They're gonna put the
But-
demands on, and then the townspeople are gonna be paying it, not the town. It's the townspeople, the taxpayers that are
Right.
gonna be paying it.
Exactly. So it's, so all of this stuff, you know, everybody knows there's no perfect answer for everything. But what our job would be to find the most practical, beneficial to meet everybody here. And so the matters that are being brought here, I mean, you know, after we get water lines, then we're also going to have sewer lines. And so, and you yourself, Lori, have told us tonight that the population of the community is going down. So once those resources become available in the community, it attracts more development and attracts larger developments. So it's not just a matter of how many wells we need for residential or affordable housing units. It's what's going to come with it is how much we may need for other kinds of commercial enterprises. So, and then, so will be in perpetual motion, currently, always trying to seek more water resources and always increasing capacities of septic systems. So it's a very serious problem, and I don't think any one of us wants to discourage affordable housing or low income housing. But it has all these things have implications and impact on everybody. And to try to determine the best way to address them. And, you know, we don't have a town planner to foresee or find grant resources to do a lot of this stuff. And so when I met with the town planner in Harvard, my ears were wide open because that developer that's putting all those units in, it's right near the exit 111 and Route 2. he's tapping existing resources that once were used, okay? Not building new ones.
Mhm.
That's a big distinction.
Yeah, of course.
So anyway, in summary, I think what the housing authority's done is very good. And I compliment you all on doing that. But we've got to address some of these other things as well. And that requires more input from a lot of people. So, um, I think maybe what we could communicate to the housing authority is that they did an excellent job in preparing a bylaw for us to review and discuss, and that I personally feel is a good job. However, we still have the burden of trying to deal with some of these other topics.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. I'll tell them to look at this recorded meeting. And I'll take it from there. Planning board regulations, general subdivision control. Was that something we already did?
I'm sorry, what, the
3.1, was that the one that was supposed to come before the meeting that never happened?
3.1 is the ongoing regulations review the board was doing throughout the whole code and regulations of the planning board. 3.2 is the age restricted bylaw discussion that was originally, going to go to town meeting, but the public hearing, after the public hearing, the board decided to postpone it. So
Oh, because
right
of the
now-
water,
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
the same thing.
because
but
of the
that-
water,
And so it sounds like a pressing issue for
because
both.
Todd was at that.
And I think that those two could be covered together if we invite perhaps the water department or somebody from the board, a joint meeting maybe with the Board of Water Commissioners, something like that
Okay,
might be helpful. Because both those bylaws, the cluster, residential cluster development. and
Right,
the,
right, would be affected by,
The age restricted, yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe that would be a path forward,
So why would you, since this is like a cluster and cottage dwelling, couldn't you just put a paragraph in here for age restricted rather than having two separate bylaws?
Sounds very efficient.
yeah,
I mean, because you're talking basically the age restricted
Yeah.
talks about cluster and
yeah,
cottage
Yeah.
dwelling, so instead of having two separate ones, why not just have
Yeah.
one and just
Yeah.
add something in there about, for age restricted, it has to be whatever. I think
we have-
Adam had some language about putting something in there about, he has to be one person. has to
yeah,
be-
right, he,
I remember right. I just don't see having two separate ones that almost say the same thing.
I agree,
Mhm.
I agree.
Mhm.
What do we have on May 8th?
Right now, pretty clear agenda.
Why don't you see if you could set something up with the water commissioners and,
I'm sorry.
maybe Rick Metcalf from
Yeah.
Board of Health. I don't need the
That'd be great.
Board of Health. But, or even just, I mean, it doesn't have to be all the commissioners,
Mhm.
but it could be, the commissioner for the water department and Rick Metcalf for the Board of Health. And if housing wants to come in, well, usually Chaz would come. Do we still have Chaz? As a
Yeah, I
chairman?
believe so, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, he was at the last meeting.
okay, so, yeah, just let Courtney know that this was our discussion and I would also let her know that we're thinking of joining those two bylaws, the
Oh,
age
okay.
restricted and the cluster for affordable,
Mhm.
and ask if they want to join us that meeting. but that could be a work session. If we don't have any public hearings,
Yeah.
that could be a work session on everything we have to work on.
And what would tie into that nicely is that's also the kickoff meeting with MRPC
Oh, cool,
regarding
right.
the MBTA communities.
They're coming with us that night, to
Yeah.
us.
So I'll see
Okay,
if I can
fine.
set up a huge,
Very good.
okay, that'd be great. All the things that could be addressed. Okay.
8:15.
8:15, you want to adjourn?
I do.
I'll also circulate that scope to the board.
Okay,
I just found out it got
the water department thing.
for the MBTA communities.
Oh, yeah, okay,
Compliance.
Right.
Scope of services. So-
right, okay. Okay, so our May 8th meeting, we're gonna look to join with, Board of Health, Water Department, and possibly Housing. We have no public hearings that evening, so that'll be a good work session evening to try to get, some updates done on the bylaws. Bylaws and our regulations. Our regulations do not go before the town. So we can
Yeah.
find the sections that we can tweak. And then the ones that we can move forward as a bylaw change. Okay. Carol has moved to adjourn at 8:16. Is there a second?
I'll second that. You guys there? You're muted now.
Yes.
Oh, there you go. You're back. I don't know if you heard me. I'll second that.
You did. I heard the second. I didn't hear the vote.
Mike Verosco, yes.
Okay, and Robert?
Robert Therian, yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, everybody.